So magandang araw mga kapatid. Nandito po tayo sa ating seminar para sa feed. Bali, my obligation with you is to discuss the feed law, which is under Republic Act number 1556. So this Republic Act was constituted or promulgated in 1956. But it was later amended after 16 years by Presidential Decree number 7 dated September 30, 1972. So kung titingnan po natin up to now, we are now in 2020, medyo senior citizen na siya, 64 years old na siya itong law. Ang tanong po is, why do we have this particular kind of law? It's because we have a livestock industry that we have to protect. And we have consumers of the livestock industry. Meron po tayong mga feeds na mina-manufacture, we are even importing, and we are distributing, and more particular, we are selling this product. So the government saw that need to regulate. So ang tawag po dito sa law is, it is the Livestock and Poultry Feeds Act, also commonly known as the Feed Control Law. So the purpose of this is to regulate and control. Pag sinabi nating regulate and control, to place it in its proper perspective and in its proper order. Ano po ang pinagre-regulate dito? The manufacturing of the feeds, the importation of the feeds, even the labeling, or even the mere advertising of the feeds that has to be distributed for sale, including the most part is the distribution and the sale, which you are engaged. So basically, the rationale number one we have here under the law, the rationale of the feed or control law is, number one is to protect the poultry and livestock raisers. Kayo po yun, ano? So that your effort of raising the poultry or livestock, you will have a fair return of your investments. Second is to protect the public in general. Bakit the public in general? Pag sinabing public, it includes us, ano? Because we are the one consuming the livestock when it is transformed into something that has to be consumed for our consumption, for human consumption. Thirdly, is to prevent the adulteration of the feeds that has to be fed to our livestock and poultry, so that it will be an appropriate meal for our animals, especially for food animals. And number four is to assure the purchaser of quality of feeds and feedstuffs. So definitely, when anyone who tries to purchase something, they expect a fair return of their investment. Yung binibili nila must be a quality product para sa kanilang alagang baboy or any animals for food consumption, so that there will be a fair return also of their investment as livestock raisers. Okay. So how do we implement these regulations, this control and regulation? The only way for the government to regulate and control is to mandate the registration of your establishments, or the registrations of the manufactured feeds, the distribution. So your establishments, your feeds, and your distributions, whether you are a new or a renewal, baguhan ka or dati na, there is a mandate under the law to be registered. So it is good to be a law-abiding citizen. So what are the documentary requirements for the mandatory registration? Number one is, it's very easy to procure. Number one is mayor's permit. Number two is the notarized application. Your application must be notarized. And you have to provide your residence certificate together with a documentary stamp, which is a at a very minimal cost. And the last requirement is the certificate of attendance as a proof that you have attended a seminar like this. So those are the simple requirements for the registration of your feeds or establishments. What is the corresponding fee for the mandatory registration? If you are a distributor or a dealer, your fee is 120 pesos. If you are a retailer or an outlet, feed outlet, your registration fee is only 60 pesos. This is good for 1 year because the registration is good only for 1 year. So you are required to renew your registration every year. So the period of registration is the effectivity of your registration is from January 1 to December 31. So that is the calendar or fiscal year. But the renewal, the requirement for renewal is it should be renewed prior to its expiry. So during the last quarter of the year, it starts from October, so October, November, December. But the law has given us ample time as an extension. You are given up to January 21, even if your registration has already expired on December 31. So the law has given us a leeway until January 21. You are required to register without penalty. But beyond that, after January 21 of the ensuing year, the appropriate surcharges will be charged against you. Like for example, if you registered beyond 15 days after January 21, the surcharge will be 25%. If it is beyond 30-day period after January 2021, the surcharge will be 50%. If it is beyond 45 days after January 21, there will be a surcharge of 75%. So if you register beyond 45 days after January 21, there will be 100% surcharge. What is the base of the percentage of surcharge? It's either from 120 pesos or 60 pesos. Baka sabihin nyo, it's very minimal kasi 120 tapos 60 pesos. Anyway, we will lobby Congress to increase the penalty. Okay. Ito naman po, yung duties ng mga taga-Department of Agriculture. We represent the government in controlling and regulating the manufacturing, the importation, the distribution, and the sale of the feeds. So, ito po yung mga obligations po namin. We have the duty to enter your establishments. What is the purpose of entering your establishment? That is for purposes of inspection. Pag sinabing establishment, it includes your premises, your stores, even your conveyances, yung mga transport facilities nyo, kasi doon nyo sinasakay yung mga feed products nyo for distribution. So we can enter any of your premises or stores or establishments. The purpose of our entering in the performance of our function is to conduct regular investigations. So ano po yung investigations? It covers saan ba galing yung mga feeds nyo, ano yung sources nyo, saan ba yung distributions ng mga feeds nyo, ano bang mga ingredients na ginagamit nyo doon. Is it in line with the proper compounds or compositions of the feeds for formulation? Because the government has outlined already the basic or the minimum requirement for every feed formulation. And then at the same time, we have that duty to take samples for analysis and evaluation. That's why from time to time, in a regular basis, we collect samples for analysis and we submit it for evaluation and analysis in our own laboratory. So we have our laboratory for sample analysis and evaluation. After the result, we return to you the results so that you can evaluate whether your feed products are of quality or not, whether there is a deficiency in any form of nutrients, so that your feed products may find some compliance or adjustment in the formulation. And we can also open any packages or containers for purposes of analysis and samples. So open closed packages. And then we can inspect any records or documents pertaining to your establishment. But the purpose of this is for purposes of assessment, especially for distributors and manufacturers. Because here in your records, it will appear the volume of your stocks and inventory. And based on these volumes, there we compute the assessments that you will pay in the renewal of your applications and the monthly submission of manufacturing of products. Okay. Now, what are your duties as owners of establishments, as either distributor, manufacturer, or dealer or seller, or even importers of ingredients, because most of manufacturers are importing goods or ingredients. So number one is, what is your number one duty? First, before you accept a product from a manufacturer, especially if you are a dealer, it is your obligation to see to it that specific legal requirements are complied by your supplier, especially your manufacturer if you are a dealer. If you are a manufacturer, see to it that what you are importing as part of your ingredients in the formulations of your feed products, there must first be inspection prior to acceptance of the product that you will be accepting, either for purposes of formulation, for manufacturing, or acceptance of feed products from your source, from your distributor or dealer. You have to make an inspection prior to acceptance, that it is good, that it is of a quality product, because it will be consumed by our food animals. Number two, you must be aware of the procedures adopted by our government. What are the requirements that we are teaching regularly, especially when we are going around for purposes of monitoring and inspection? We always advise proper handling and labeling. So there must be a proper display area, part of proper handling of the products, but because we are handling feeds for animals. And then you will always notice that we always require that every product that you display, there must be a label. At the same time, it is a guide for your consumers or your buyers or your clients, so that they will have an option of what kind of brand or quality they wish to procure for their animals. And then, it is your duty to adopt and apply codes and principles for good practices. Later, we will discuss these good practices based on a present or current law on food security, which is covered by Republic Act 10611, which is the Food Safety Act. So we will discuss this later as we go along. And then number three, it is your duty to withdraw food item from the market. Like, for example, if the food items that you are selling is no longer safe. So if you see, if it is already apparent that your feed product is no longer safe, like, for example, it has already expired, because the period of efficacy of your feeds is only good for 3 months. So it is only good for 3 months from manufacture. Beyond that period, it is no longer safe. So if it is already beyond that period, you have an obligation to withdraw it from the market. Number 2, example, or not in compliance with safety requirements. Like for example, you are not displaying it properly, you are allowing it to be exposed to so much heat or under the sun, or being exposed under the rain. Because under these conditions, definitely the efficacy or the nutritive value of your feeds are affected. Once your feed products are affected, the nutritive value has decreased. You have an obligation to withdraw it from the market. It is part of social conscience. Okay. Third, it is your duty to allow inspection and monitoring, especially of the representatives of the Department of Agriculture or any other government agency for purposes of performing their official functions for inspection and monitoring as to compliance of your establishment. And then the next is, you have the duty to recall products which has already been distributed. Pag sinabing recall products, meron na pong bumili, ano? And then merong nagreklamo na medyo the result was not good for our animals. It is your duty to recall the products. Specifically, definitely it is unsafe already, or in particular, non-compliant food products reaching already your consumers. At the same time, when you recall the products, immediately call the attentions of your distributor, or even you can come over to this office to assist you in making investigations why your products is no longer safe for consumption by food animals. Okay. And then inform consumers reasons for recall or withdrawal, so that there will be no public panic of the reasons why there was a recall. Okay. And then submit for annual renewal of registration. So it is your duty to submit for renewal of your registration. As I said a while ago, the efficacy of your registration is only good for 1 year. So it is good from January 1 up to December 31 of every current year. So the period of registration is being accepted during the last quarter of every current year. The principle of registration of renewal is renewal should be made prior to the expiration of your registration, because it is basically the principle is based on when there is no more life, there is no life to renew. So renewal must be during the existence of still a life. Okay. So before the expiration, there must be renewal. So what are the other of your duties as establishment owners? Records keeping. Under the Code of Commerce, every merchant must have a record to be kept. Ang tawag nila doon is logbook. And then at the same time, there is what we call the beginning inventory of their stocks. Okay. Pag sinabing merchant, it is defined under the law as anyone who habitually engages himself or herself in transacting goods or merchandise. Habitually engaged in merchandise or goods to the public. So kagaya nyo, habitually engaged in dealing with feed products, you are called a merchant. As a merchant, under the Code of Commerce, you are required to maintain records. So you have to make that practice of records keeping. Specifically, in your records keeping, you must have a monthly inventory. This will help you in evaluating your business, your undertaking. So, what are the specific requirements that should be embodied in that monthly inventory? The length of display. The purpose of this length of display, so that you will have a regular evaluation kung for how long have you displayed your product. If it is already beyond, under your record, it's already beyond 3 months, you have to recall it to, not to display it for sale already because it's no longer good. And then the length of storage, okay. And then you have to log in your records the damaged and adulterated products. When it is already damaged and adulterated, you have to make the proper dispositions, okay. Pag sinabing damaged or adulterated, example po yun ng mga so muchly exposed to sunlight, because if there is so much exposure to sunlight, the nutritive value of your feed products dramatically decreases. And when it is adulterated, we will discuss this later, what are the examples of adulterated products. So if you have already this damaged and adulterated products, it is your duty to dispose of it properly. No longer engage it for sale. Okay. Ito na po yung principles for good practices. Number 1 requirement, which is based on RA 10611, which is the Food Safety Act of the Philippines. So, number 1, pag sinabing food hygiene, it is synonymous to cleanliness, no? Cleanliness. Pag sinabing cleanliness is next to godliness. We learned that from our elementary, Cleanliness is next to godliness. So, it means there is order. So, it refers to measures and conditions necessary to avoid hazards. Kasi pag ang isang bagay or isang product is clean and sanitary, it avoids hazards, no? When there is no hazards, it is safe. So that is what we say in food safety, okay? To make sure that your food is fit for consumption. Food hygiene ensures fitness for consumption. So make sure, that's why during our monitoring and inspections, we always advise to make a proper display. We always advise na parating merong paleta yung mga naka-display ng mga products so that there will be aeration of, there is proper air circulation so that the length, the integrity of your product may be lengthened. Okay. Food safety, it is an assurance that product will not cause harm to consumer, especially in the preparation and in the end, the consumption of the food product. So pag sinabing food safety, it is safe to eat something or consume something that is good for you, that will not bring you to some form of illness or disease. So yan ang very basic principle ng food safety. Okay. So basically, it is always synonymous to cleanliness, sanitary, and safe products. Okay. So, ito po yung reminders for vigilance natin. This is part of our social conscience. As an individual, especially if we are dealing with the public, once you deal with the public, you are embedded with a social conscience. Ibig sabihin, you have a basic responsibility to look for the welfare of others, not for yourself. So, what are these reminders? Number 1, hazards. Pag sinabing hazards, make sure that your products are safe for consumption. Because ultimately, it is us humans who will consume the products. Pag sinabing hazards, it refers to 3 kinds of hazards. It is classified as either biological, chemical, or physical agent. Pag sinabing biological, pwedeng yung mga sources of viruses or diseases that can contaminate your products. Pag sinabing chemical, yung mga halimbawa ng chemical is halimbawa in your display area may mga katabi silang mga pintura, other products that are not good besides your feeds, because it causes contamination or physical agent. Halimbawa yung madumi yung surroundings. That's why we require that your surroundings must be clean, sanitary. Pag sinabing physical agent, kasama na po yung halimbawa your products is lined up together with cements. Yung dust ng cement are physical agent that can transfer to your feed products. You will not notice it. The purity of the cement may be part of already of the composition of your feed products. So, kaya binabawal po namin yung pag-display ng mga feed products nyo besides chemical products and other physical like cement, yung mga other mga hollow blocks or mga steels besides your products. That's why we always require that you have a specific area only for your feed products, because they have the potential to cause adverse effect on the feeds and ultimately on the health of the animals that will consume your products, and ultimately on the health of the people who will consume the products. Next is damaged feeds. So pag sinabing damaged feeds, minamention natin kanina is there is a decrease in the nutritive value of your feed or feed stuff. So when it is already damaged, it is part of your obligation to withdraw it from display, from selling. Okay. When fed to livestock may be injurious to health of animals. So pag damaged na, definitely it's no longer good. When you feed it to animals, definitely there will be a negative effect, which will be injurious to the health of animals. Okay. Kawawa naman yung mag-consume tayo. So, example nun is expired feeds with foul odor. Kaya pag medyo yung smell nyo ng feeds nyo is no longer good, it's no longer a good or quality product. O pag may nakikita po kayong mga gumagapang ng mga foreign elements like pest, it is already contaminated. So when it is that appearance, you have an obligation to withdraw it from being sold to the public. Okay. Adulterated, ito po ang sinasabi natin that we will discuss. So, pag sinabing adulterated feeds, so pag adulterated na po, it is already your obligations not to display it for public consumption. Pag sinabing adulterated, it contains material not part of the proper ingredient of the formulation. So it has some elements no longer part of the material composition of the feeds that you have submitted for registration. So pag sinabing adulterated na, it is already harmful, injurious, and damaged, which has no value already. Second, any substance that has been added to the composition of your feed products purposely to increase the bulk or weight. Kasi halimbawa, kulang na yung supply nyo, hindi pa nagdi-deliver yung supplier nyo, maraming bumibili, bibigla lalagyan nyo lang yun ng mga other ingredients para increase yung bulk nyo so that you have enough merchandise to sell to the public. Medyo it is already in the form of adulterated, you are not allowed to do that. At the same time, when you do that, it reduces the quality or strength of your products, which is no longer part of the food safety requirement. Okay. So mixture of 2 or more mixed feeds of different formula or brand with intent to sell. So it is not allowed to mix 2 kinds of brands to form one kind of formulation for sale. because each formulation is being approved by the government every time you register the feed formulations of your product. So it has its own individual identity. So mixture of 2 or more brands is not allowed. Contaminant. Pag sinabi natin contaminant, kanina minention natin yung biological, chemical, and physical contaminants. So any substance not intentionally added to feeds as a result of production. Kasi we are referring here yung meron tayong mga manufacturer. Post-production handling. So contamination may happen during formulation, production, manufacturing. And then after the manufacturing, the mode of handling, contaminations may come in. So pag sinabi natin contamination, it is always referring to hazards. Pag sinabing hazards, it always refer to either biological, chemical, or physical agents that can mix in to your feed products. And then during the manufacturing and processing, the preparation, the treatment, the packing, the transport, and the holding of such feeds as a result of environmental contamination. So yun po yun mga contaminants. This is the moment where contamination happens. Okay. So yun po yung basic obligations nyo. Here, we now come to the Unlawful Acts that's defined under Republic Act 1556 as amended. O ito pong dinidiscuss po natin. So that you will be aware of this unlawful acts in order for you to avoid this. Okay, so that you can be free from unnecessary inconveniences, both administrative and criminal. Number 1 is, it is unlawful to manufacture, to distribute, and sell animal feeds without registration. So, ibig sabihin, you are mandated to register. So, your feed products and your feed establishments. So, 2 registrations, your feed products and your establishment. Yung feed products, that is the obligation of the manufacturer to register the feed products. As a dealer, it is your obligation to register your feed establishment. Okay. Number 2, it is unlawful to use your registration number for purposes or inconvenience of other people, other dealer. So, huwag nyong ipahihiram yung registration number nyo or your registration itself to other individuals because your registration is exclusive. Okay. Number 3, yung adulteration ng feeding value. Didiscuss po na natin yun, yung adulteration. Pag sinabing adulteration, it is adding something not appropriate or proper. Adulteration. Okay. Number 4, unlawful act is when you tamper the packaged feeds for fraudulent purposes. Ano ibig sabihin ng tamper with packaged feeds? Halimbawa, yung container nyo referring to brand A. Pag sinabing brand A, the product itself is registered with the BAI. Pag sinabing brand A, yung package nyo, make sure that the contents of that container is really brand A as registered with the BAI. Okay, if you substitute another product outside the representation of your package, it is tampering. Okay. Number 5, when you willfully remove the markings, the labels, or the tags. So you remove the tags and the labels. Kaya we always require that all your products must have tags, labels, and markings. Okay. Or you alter, you change it. Instead of it is being a brand X, it's of low quality, you place there brand A. So that is alteration of the proper markings or taggings or labeling. Or you erase or you make it unnoticeable, that you can no longer decipher what kind of product it is. That is effacing of tags, labels, and markings. Number 6, fraudulently alter or use certificate of analysis of any official analysis. Ang official analysis lang ng feed products nyo, when we collect it, we submit it to our laboratory for official results of analysis. Or you can also refer, after the manufacturing of your products, you are required to submit it for laboratory analysis. The result of which will be the official result of the kind of quality or products you have manufactured. Ito sa mga manufacturer ito. So, the faithful reproduction of the results of analysis should not be fraudulently substituted for any form of results. Otherwise, when there will be a reconfirmation of the results, that there is no congruence in the results that you have submitted, there will be a fraudulent or alterations of certificate of analysis. Okay. Number 7 is when you do not allow government representative to enter your premises to perform their mandated function. So you hinder willfully or oppose in any way the performance of functions of the government personality for purposes of mandated performance of their duties for monitoring and inspection of your establishment. Number 8, unauthorized disposition of feeds placed under detention. Ano pong ibig sabihin po nitong number 8, unauthorized disposition? For example, Mr. A, representative of the Department of Agriculture, went to your place and discovered that there is a damaged feeds being displayed for sale to the public. And sabi ni Mr. A sa'yo, sir, pwede bang i-hold muna yan for 1 month because we will take samples and we will submit it for laboratory analysis, and you wait for the result of the analysis so that we can evaluate if your product is still good for disposition. So you hold that product for 1 month. Do not attempt to sell it to the public. Once you dispose of it during that period of detention, this is what we call unauthorized disposition of feeds placed under detention. So it is an unlawful act. Okay. Number 9, ito po yung mga specific acts. Example nun is yung damaged feeds. So dinefine na po natin yung damaged feeds. So kaya pag damaged feeds, it is already unlawful to display it for public consumption. Okay. Second, injurious or harmful feeds. Dinefine na po natin yon. Mixing of ground rice hull to rice bran. Kasi ito po yung ground rice hull, especially for our pigs or swine, it is very detrimental to the stomach of our swine. Other example is sale to public of custom mixed feeds. Ano po itong custom mixed feeds? Pag sinabing custom mixed feeds, it is specifically formulated for a particular kind of animal, which is not intended for public consumption. So there is a specific intention of formulation intended for a specific class of animals only. When it is made, it is exclusive for that particular group or kind of animals, not intended for public consumption. When you sell custom mixed feeds, it is an unlawful undertaking. Another example is use of harmful containers as containers for feeds or feedstuffs. Mga examples po nito, yung mga containers na ginagamit sa gasolina or other chemical containers. No matter how you clean it, the toxicity of that containers will not be completely removed And when you use it as containers for your feed products, it becomes a chemical contaminant. So, iyan po na example ng chemical hazard. Okay. So, yung another example is unlabeled or untagged products. Kaya we always advise that you maintain the label and the tags of the display of products you have in your establishment. So, mishandling of products, diniscuss na po natin, exposure to heat or rain, misleading or false advertisements and labeling, use of urea in mixing feeds. So, urea is not allowed especially for small ruminants, especially for poultry and for pigs, okay, for swine. But in large cattle, it may be allowed. Okay. Number 10, this is a catch-all provision of Republic Act 1556 as amended, which is a general statement which says, violation of any provision of this act and the implementing rules and regulations as issued. Pag sinabi pong implementing rules and regulations, ito na po yun mga administrative order, mga circulars, o mga issuances ng government through the Department of Agriculture. So tapos na po tayo dito sa unlawful acts. We now go to the penalties. Pag sinabi pong penalties, it is categorized either administrative or criminal. Pag sinabing administrative, it is the Department of Agriculture in cooperation with the local government unit or other government agencies for the imposition of specific penalties. Number 1, 30-day suspension of registration. So 30-day suspension of registration. Example po nito, halimbawa, you display products that are no longer good for consumption, we may suspend your registration for 30 days. Ibig sabihin po nun is, you will not be allowed to sell your products within that period of suspension. Or, probation for 1 year after 30 days suspension. Sinabi namin sa inyo na you do not engage in selling your products within a period of 30 days, yet you engage in selling your products, we will impose a probation for 1 year. You will not be allowed during this period to engage in selling your products. And number 3 is ultimately is the cancellation of certificate of registration. Pag nagkaroon na kayo ng 30-day suspension, nagkaroon pa kayo ng probation, the worst that we can give you is the cancellation of your certificate of registration. Okay. Especially if it is an outright violation within the 30-day suspension. Okay. So, and then cancellation of mayor's permit. So, we can ask the local chief executive to cancel your mayor's permit. Once your mayor's permit is cancelled, it will already be illegal for you to engage in business or commerce. Or we can prohibit the sale of your product, especially if it is already adulterated, damaged, injurious. Okay. And then another penalty is impounding of feeds. Okay, impounding. We can confiscate feeds that according to our evaluation, it is no longer good for consumption, or it is already hazardous. We can impound feeds. And then once we impound it, we can dispose of the feeds that we have impounded. So specifically, if it is deficient, injurious, or illegal feed or feedstuffs. Okay. So after that, we can engage in the selling of the feeds that we have impounded for some economic values. Okay. Halimbawa, pinagbenta po namin yung proceeds. Sa amin na po yung proceeds. Gagamitin po yan ng gobyerno for purposes of regulation and monitoring. Okay. And then, if there is the violation has been identified, there will be a proper investigations and hearing before the Animal Feed Standard Advisory Committee. Okay. Dito na po tayo sa last part. Okay. Yung criminal penalties. Yung penalty is fine of 1,000 pesos up to a maximum of 5,000 pesos. So after 64 years of existence of this law, 5,000 pa yung maximum penalty in a form of fine. Although there is now a lobby in Congress to increase the fine. Okay. You will see the difference in the Animal Welfare Act, which has a higher penalty range. And then, it involves imprisonment of 1 year and 1 day. So, imprisonment of 1 year and 1 day. Okay. Or, at the discretion of the judge, because the criminal penalty will be at the discretion of the judge, of the court. So, it's either the impositions of fine and imprisonment, or only fine or only imprisonment. So at the discretion of the judge, okay, at the discretion of the court. So if you are a remorseful offender, the judge may see you as with some leeway. He may opt to impose fine only, or the judge will impose only imprisonment. That's why if you are an offender, if you are before a judge, always behave so that the judge, upon noticing that you are always behave, might as well have compassion and impose only a fine of 1,000. Okay. Okay, these are the deputized authorized enforcers as deputized by the Bureau of Animal Industry of the Department of Agriculture. Ito po yung mga agriculturists, mga senior agriculturists, supervising and chief agriculturists of the Animal Feed Standard Division of BAI, and other deputized regional and provincial animal feeds and veterinary drugs and biologics control officers. Okay. Ito po yung mga examples of violations that we have encountered as we perform our mandated functions. Ito po yung mga unlabeled, untagged products, walang mga paleta. Okay. Examples of too much exposure to sunlight, to the elements. It reduces the nutritive value of your feed products, which declines the quality of your product. Okay. So, thank you very much po.